Somewhere in a government archive, there is a drawer. Inside that drawer, a file. Inside that file, a name. A name that never made the headlines, never trended, never got the Netflix special. And that was not an accident. History has a filter. The cases that dominate our true crime obsession, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, they became household names. But for every monster who got the spotlight, there are others who slipped through the cracks. Not because they were less dangerous, not because the evidence was thin, but because the story was inconvenient. Tonight, we open the files they buried. 10 killers, 10 cases, each one overshadowed, suppressed, or quietly erased from the public record. Some were hidden to protect institutions, some were hidden to protect reputations, and some we still don't fully understand why. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear has been waiting a long time to be told. The year is 1941. Washington, D.C., a city gripped by fear as women are found strangled in their own homes. The killer is methodical, invisible, and terrifyingly patient. His name is Jarvis Theodore Catoe, and by the time they caught him, he had already confessed to at least 9 murders across 2 states. Catoe worked as a chauffeur, which gave him access, mobility, and cover. He targeted women, often strangling them during or after assault. What makes his case remarkable is how thoroughly it vanished. He was executed in 1943, and then nothing. No books, no documentaries, no cultural footprint. A black serial killer in the Jim Crow South. The story was never designed to be told. California, the 1970s, the era of Zodiac hysteria and hillside strangler headlines. While the media chased those shadows, a quiet, soft-spoken man named Patrick Wayne Kearney was dismembering bodies and disposing of them along California's highways. He is believed to have killed at least 28 men, making him one of America's most prolific killers of that decade. Kearney specifically targeted gay men along the I-5 corridor, a community that, in the 1970s, rarely reported disappearances to police out of fear of exposure. Investigators called him the trash bag killer because of how he packaged his victims. He confessed. He was convicted. He is serving life in a California prison today. And yet most people have never heard his name. 28 victims, forgotten. This next case is not just disturbing. It is a catastrophic failure of the justice system. Corll Eugene Watts was known to Michigan police as a suspect in a string of attacks as early as 1974. He was eventually convicted of assault, attended college while monitored, and then quietly moved to Texas, where he kept killing. Authorities estimate he murdered between 80 and 100 women. In 1982, Watts was caught in Texas during a botched attack where 2 women survived. Here is the part that should outrage you. Prosecutors offered him full immunity from his Texas murders in exchange for his confessions to clear cold cases. He served 25 years for burglary. He was nearly released in 2004. Only new legislation kept him locked up. He died in prison in 2007. But the deal, that was never supposed to be public knowledge. October 1947. Tacoma, Washington. A police officer responds to screams and finds Jake Bird mid-attack with a hatchet. Bird is arrested, tried, and sentenced to death. Standard story. Except, Jake Bird then did something extraordinary. From his jail cell, he began confessing. City after city, state after state, he claimed to have killed 44 people across the United States. Investigators from multiple states came to interview him and found his confessions corroborated details only the killer could know. He is credibly linked to murders in at least 11 states, making him a contender for one of the most widely traveled serial killers in American history. He was executed in 1949. The full scope of his crimes was never formally compiled. Many families never got answers. Jake Bird remains a footnote, a hatchet, a name carved out of the record. Before we go further, not all of the forgotten are men. Belle Gunness was a Norwegian-American woman operating a farm in LaPorte, Indiana in the early 1900s. She placed lonely hearts ads in newspapers, luring in wealthy suitors and immigrants with promises of marriage and a new life. What they found instead was a slaughterhouse. Investigators eventually unearthed the remains of at least 28 people on her property. In 1908, her farmhouse burned down. A headless female body was found inside, assumed to be Belle, but the body was never conclusively identified, and sightings of a woman matching her description continued for decades. Did she fake her death and disappear? Investigators in the 1930s believed yes. Belle Gunness may be the most prolific female serial killer in American history, and because she may have walked away, the full case was quietly shelved. In August 1973, a name that should have changed American history forever emerged from a Houston neighborhood: Dean Corll. At least 28 young boys and men were tortured and killed, more victims than Ted Bundy's confirmed count. His accomplices were teenagers themselves. The case was real, the horror was documented. So why, within a year, did it almost completely vanish from national conversation? Corll worked for his family's candy company, giving him access to children in working-class Houston neighborhoods. The victims were poor, many were runaways. Police had actually been called about missing boys and dismissed the reports. When the full scope emerged, it exposed a catastrophic institutional failure. Reporters who pressed the story too hard found their access cut off. The case was quietly overshadowed as Watergate consumed national attention. Timing is everything when you want the world to look away. Los Angeles, late 1970s. The Freeway killer. William Bonin murdered at least 14 young men, often picking up hitchhikers along Southern California highways. He had accomplices, multiple men who participated in his crimes, and the case exposed something that investigators and media at the time actively avoided: a network, not a lone wolf. A network. Bonin had previous convictions for sexual assault and had been released from a state hospital just before his killing spree began. A psychiatrist had flagged him as a danger. The recommendation was ignored. When this detail surfaced during trial, the state had every reason to want the case minimized. Bonin was executed in 1996, the first person executed by lethal injection in California. The institutional failures that enabled him, those were never put on trial. Cleveland, Ohio, 2009. Workers at a home on Imperial Avenue discover something inside the walls, then in the yard, then in the basement. 11 women, all murdered, all hidden in plain sight. The man responsible, Anthony Sowell, had been a registered sex offender. Police had received complaints from women who said they had been attacked at that address. Those complaints were not acted on. All 11 victims were black women. Many struggled with addiction. They were, by the system's quiet calculation, expendable. Neighbors had noticed a smell for months and reported it. They were told it was the sausage plant nearby. Sowell was convicted in 2011 and died on death row in 2021. His case received regional attention but almost no sustained national coverage. 11 women, a registered sex offender, documented complaints, and a city that looked away. In 2012, an aging drifter named Samuel Little was arrested in a Mississippi shelter on a drug charge. A routine DNA swab changed everything. He matched 3 unsolved murders in Los Angeles from the 1980s. By the time investigators were done talking to him, Samuel Little had confessed to 93 murders, spanning 35 years in 19 states. The FBI confirmed at least 60. He is the most prolific confirmed serial killer in American history. So why did it take until 2018 for the public to know his name? Because his victims, again, were black women, sex workers, and addicts. Women whose disappearances were filed as drug overdoses, whose deaths were ruled inconclusive, whose cases were never opened. Little knew this. He said so explicitly during confessions. He chose victims the system would not look for. He died in prison in 2020. 93 people. Decades of silence. One system that failed them all. Our final entry has no single name, because it is a category. The FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, currently holds tens of thousands of unsolved homicide records. Criminologists estimate that between 2,000 and 3,500 active serial killers may be operating in the United States at any given time. Not historical. Now, at this moment, cases that have never been connected, killers who were never identified. Many of these open cases involve victims who were never properly investigated because of who they were, where they lived, or what they were assumed to be. The Highway Serial Killings Initiative has linked over 850 murders along U.S. trucking routes. Most victims remain unnamed. Most killers remain at large. The archive is not empty because these crimes didn't happen. The archive is redacted because the system decided some lives required less ink. Every name in this video was real. Every victim was real. The silence around their stories was not accidental. It was constructed, brick by brick, from institutional failure, media bias, racial inequity, and the oldest political tool in history, distraction. When the spotlight lands on one monster, it is easy to forget that there are shadows behind him that nobody is lighting. The files we showed you tonight are not closed. Many families are still waiting. Cold case investigators still need leads. If you believe every victim deserves the same coverage regardless of race, class, or circumstance, share this video, subscribe, and the next time a new true crime story dominates the algorithm, ask yourself, who is not being talked about? The most dangerous secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight. This has been the Redacted Files.